It displays truthfully how the world is kind of confused right now, how to deal with the corona crisis, because there are always two sides to one story.
This is a war between two viruses, both spreading wide as a disease on Earth. This is, for instance, another crisis, whose final toll will outnumber all deaths. There is no justice to claim for either, since this is less than a game for nature. Do not seek answers from the universe, since it creates the order in chaos. Disregarding every meaningful war, eventually this must be ended. By the future, whoever has a plan, to history the present is headed. This is a war between two viruses. This is a war beyond two viruses. Humana and Corona, and what else? Unless right and wrong equal good and bad, still yes and no confuse because and why. This highlights kind of how meaningless the natural element of coronavirus is. Nature doesn't really have any preference, it doesn't have any emotions about it, it just does. It just does what it does. And that's a little bit depressing, but at the same time, humans are good at creating meaning out of things when we need to.
This is a war between two viruses, both spreading wide as a disease on Earth. This is, for instance, another crisis whose final toll will outnumber all deaths. There is no justice to claim for either, since this is less than a game for nature. Do not seek answers from the universe, since it creates the order in chaos. Disregarding every meaningful war eventually, this must be ended by the future, whoever has a plan. To history, the present is headed. This is a war beyond two viruses, Humana and Corona, and what else? Unless right and wrong equal good and bad, still, yes and no confuse because and why.
I really like how you start the first stanza with, this is a war between two viruses, and then the final stanza is, this is a war beyond two viruses. So we see a progression in the poem. There's something that's shifting.
This is a war beyond two viruses, Humana and Corona, and what else? I don't know, the disposition is really nice.
Yeah, the wording, yeah.
Yeah.
It's no longer saying it's stuck between two. It's going beyond the premises of that. And so we want to find the answer, but sometimes the answer doesn't lie in what we're looking at or what we're trying to find. It's beyond our scope. It's beyond sometimes the answers that we're looking for from the universe. And you chose to lowercase the word universe, taking away the sanctity of what people would say is the universe and beyond us and outside of just here on Earth. We want as humans to have very definite answers. We want to know what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, but that's really quite subjective, and we're looking for something objective, and not everything is cut and dry or black and white. There's not always a right or wrong or a good and a bad. Sometimes we have to be satisfied with the questioning as to why and then not having an answer.
Do not seek answers from the universe, since it creates the order in chaos. I do like that one just because, to try to reason with something that is unreasonable is, I think, useless anyways, and I think that kind of summarizes that idea.
Since it creates the order in chaos. That's so satisfying. It's creating order in chaos. That means it's making sense of things out of absurdity. I find that really that's fucking cool.
Disregarding every meaningful war, eventually this must be ended. By the future, whoever has a plan, to history the present is headed. It's all a bit futile, the time is going to march onwards and it doesn't really care about us and what we're doing, so we're maybe a bit self-centered as a species, and really we're not that important.
There is no justice to claim for either, since this is less than a game for nature. I think that's the part that sticks out to me the most as the most poignant point, because it emphasizes how meaningless the virus is from nature's point of view.
By the future, whoever has a plan, to history, the present is headed. Because it made me understand that actually it would be so difficult for us to plan the future, that it's not like the simple daily life, but actually like life plans.
Unless right and wrong equal good and bad. I think this is a problem right now because we can't really say if what we're doing is right, we can only tell in the future, looking back at history, if what we did was the right choice.
Still, you started with lowercase still, comma, capital yes and capital no. Confuse capital because and why. By capitalizing these words, there's more precedence and significance being put on them. You have only parentheses in the first and the third one, and it's the first parentheses is both spreading wide as a disease on earth, and the other one is to history and the present is headed. Those help break away from the overarching theme of the poem and take you into something different in the sense of the history. History is behind us. History is what's been made, but also the present is headed. It's what's coming before us. I like the use of the different ideas. We talk about life and death, befores to comes, and we question the idea of ethics.
I don't think that political ideology, AI, or climate change are big threats to the Earth. I think they're big threats to humans, but we tend to center humans in our conception of the Earth and think that anything that's a threat to us is a threat to the Earth, or that we're destroying Earth. We're not destroying Earth, we're destroying ourselves, our ecosystem, and the ecosystem of a lot of animals, but the Earth will be just fine without us.
I'm usually positive and optimistic, but that's more because, humans have been, we're standing in Berlin, humans have been through like a lot of horrible history, and we're just animals and we bounce back. It's kind of how humans work. I am a little more pessimistic to just humans as individuals, however, but that's
yeah, I don't know. I think I dance between being pessimistic and optimistic depending on the day, depending on how nice the weather is outside. It makes you changes your mind on how people are gonna act in the future. I don't know. I think I go between pessimism and optimism. I want to be optimistic.
Yeah.
I want to try to be more optimistic, but sometimes you see how silly and trite people are, and you lose some faith.
Silly,
and then you see other things and you're like, oh, I've gained a lot of faith back.
We need good governance, but we need to be able to trust the people that we put in power, because their decisions ultimately dictate our lives and our futures. When it comes to good governance, like we're seeing with AI, that there's individuals who are deciding the fate of what is ethical in decision making, what is ethical in AI. A handful of people who are designing these AI, they're designing the machine learning, and their views on what is right and wrong are dictating machine learning algorithms. We're giving a lot of power to a few people, just as we do with governance. And I think that if we hold the government accountable, we should also hold them accountable to hold the individuals accountable who are doing AI. And we need good types of AI. AI is also the future, but we need to have ethical type of AI.
We know what happens when extreme ideologies clash, far left, far right as well, but I think the rise of a lot of violence and political unrest and far, far, far extreme ideologies are getting very dangerous. And I think environmental impact as well. I think the environment is going to be a big thing.
I would agree, but I think just putting politics as the umbrella term might be not the right thing. I think like conspiracy theories and like people being scared and like believing the wrong things can harm.
Disinformation,
disinformation and stuff. I think that's probably some of the most dangerous things.
Yeah.
And also environmental, of course.
I do think more people need to wake up and realize the climate crisis is not a joke, but that people are suffering at the hand of poor decision making and not caring about this beautiful planet that we've been able to call, people have been able to call Earth for thousands of years. Every decision that we're making affects the next, because we've come to a point where we have the ability to be individualistic, that we can live on our own and think that we're independent. But every decision that we make affects another person, and we are dependent on each other for this world. As much as I want to think I'm a big, bad, independent young woman, I also have people who have paved a way for me in this world and made this possible for me, other strong women and other individuals. And I think a big threat is that people thinking that we don't live a life that is actually supposed to be for each other. We need to be thinking about the next person. We need to be thinking first about ourselves, put on our, if we're giving the scenario of like on a plane. We need to put the mask on ourselves first if the plane is going down, and then put the mask on the next person. And we need to live a life that we take care of ourselves, but also look out for the next person. And people honestly just need to be able to have your differences, don't think like me, but think about how we need to be doing this for each other. We're 7 billion fucking people. You're not your own holy grail. You're not any better than the next person. We need to be doing this for each other. And I think a threat is people thinking that their life is more important than another's.
I think the biggest threat to humanity is humanity itself.
What will be the fate of the human race? I don't know for sure. I hope that whatever we do, we don't leave too much damage behind. I think we're kind of just a bit of a blip on the scene, and everything will go back to normal once we're gone. This is a war between two viruses, both spreading wide as a disease on Earth. This is, for instance, another crisis whose final toll will outnumber all deaths. There is no justice to claim for either, since this is less than a game for nature. Do not seek answers from the universe, since it creates the order in chaos. Disregarding every meaningful war, eventually this must be ended. By the future, whoever has a plan, to history, the present is headed. This is a war between two viruses, Humana and Corona, and what else? Unless right and wrong equal good and bad, still yes and no confused because and why.
Minimalistic style. It's written almost like an essay, but with a rhythm to it. It is like a documentary instead of a movie, that sort of thing.
It's very Shakespearean, like a sonnet or something almost, but not quite. Rhymes, not perfect rhymes, but rhymes there.
In terms of just its length and things like this, it's very bite-sized, it's well organized. You just have these kind of 4 stanzas, these 4 verses that really contain its own thought in and of itself, but it's still all kind of, I suppose, adds to the greater picture of questioning what's going on. It's simplistic in its organization, but it's, obviously depth in, its meaning.
I like this because it has the structure and the sense of like a traditional poem, but it is modern in its own sense, and I like that. It's original, but still follows a very like classical poetic style.
It's a direct name as well, Virus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never thought of humans as a virus. Yeah, no, I don't. I have a very positive outlook on humanity. I believe that we're all fundamentally good, and I think that there is a meaning to life, and I think that we all have a purpose here.
I was already thinking about humanity and Corona as 2 viruses, but it was good that you made that clear in the end and still kept it open.
I would say that humans in themselves are not. What the human can procreate, can do, can be toxic. We can be toxic to one another and the way we live our lives. We can be toxic to the environment by how we live in a period of consumption and production and industrialization, and we're harming in this. I'm living in a post-industrialized society, and I'm able to have the benefits of having clean water, of having electricity, of having so many things just at my fingertips, but somebody else is suffering also by making those things possible. I don't question where my waste is going. A lot of people don't question where their plastic is ending up, and there's people who are literally getting viruses and dying in the global south because of the things that I take for granted every day to live my beautiful life, and they're the ones who are either directly or indirectly suffering because of that. So to answer your question, if I think humans are the virus, I don't think so, but I think some of our tendencies can lead to that, and it's just a matter of choice.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'd say as far as the world is concerned, from the perspective of the Earth, humans are probably a pretty bad virus, given how we treat the environment. Yeah. But at least we're conscious of it.
I mean, we both studied biology, so I feel like we have a pretty educated idea of how we can kind of be defined as viruses as well.
We're pathogens. We take a lot. We don't really necessarily give a lot back. Not to the planet, at least. To each other, maybe.
Yes, I agree that humanity is a virus to this planet. We do a lot of things that a virus would do to its host. the planet will resist against its virus, like we're resisting Corona right now, and there will be natural catastrophes with that the nature will try to get rid of us, get rid of the virus.
I think that the human race is a virus.